Dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar. Good evening and welcome to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and across the world at wadr.org. This is Newslink. Here are the top stories. Electoral campaigns end in Guinea-Bissau ahead of November 23 presidential and parliamentary elections. The Niger State government in north-central Nigeria confirms abduction of school children by bandits. UN Special Envoy to West Africa and Sahel arrives in Mali over rising security threats.
We also took the opportunity to convey a message of solidarity from the United Nations to the Malian people.
And an ICC delegation meets with authorities in Conakry for justice in the September 28 stadium massacre. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. We begin in Guinea-Bissau, where campaigns entered the last day ahead of the presidential and legislative elections. All eyes are now on the capital, where the final rallies were held. The incumbent President Umar Sissoco Embalo appears to have a head start. Sankule Janko has won this report, filed in by WADR's Sani Mumunesebu in Bissau.
Umaru Sissoco Embalo is undoubtedly the most visible absent candidate from Bissau. In recent days, 12 candidates have focused their efforts on the interior of the country. The outgoing president is visible on posters stuck on cars, on t-shirts, and on the walls of public spaces. Embalo is counting in particular on the Green Boys generation, a youth movement that has, over the past few days, held gatherings and rallies in working class and peripheral neighborhoods of the capital to encourage large numbers of people to go to the polls and vote for the outgoing president. Former President Jose Mario Vaz, Fernando Diaz, and Basiru Jah, the former Prime Minister, are the other contenders competing with Umaru Sissoco Embalo in the capital. According to sources close to the campaign headquarters, all the candidates are currently heading to Bissau for the final rallies. Observers are paying particular attention to those of outgoing president and the independent candidate Fernando Diaz, who are seen as the front-runners. 800,000 voters are set to choose among the 12 presidential candidates this Sunday. They will also elect 102 members of parliament who will sit in the National People's Assembly. 14 parties are running in the legislative elections, but the pro-government platform, No Campo Guinea, which means Together for Guinea-Bissau, appear to have a head start. And for the first time in the country's history, the PAIGC, the party that led Guinea-Bissau to independence, will not appear on the ballot. The coalition PAIT Terra Ranca, Forward with Our Homeland, led by the PAIGC under Embalo's main rival, Domingo Simao Pereira, was rejected by the Supreme Court, citing the late submission of electoral documents.
A report filed in by Sani Mumunesebu, who is currently in Bissau, and presented to you by Sankule Janko. Elsewhere, Commissioner of Political Affairs, Peace and Security at the ECOWAS Commission, Ambassador Abdul Fattah Musa, has expressed confidence in the return of Alliance of Sahel State AES members to ECOWAS in the near future, describing their exit as only temporary. The members of the AES, namely Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, formally withdrew from ECOWAS on January 29, 2025 after giving the required one-year notice. Speaking to WADR on the sidelines of the West Africa Civil Society Week in Accra, Abdul Fattah Musa said the sub-regional body did not do anything fundamentally wrong to warrant the exit by the three nations. He outlined a series of measures undertaken and underway to make the sub-regional body more responsive to the needs of the people.
ECOWAS has already promoted a bottom-up discussions about the regional integration process, and where citizens will look at all the axes of integration and then pronounce themselves on what is right, what is wrong, where are the challenges, where to apply corrective measures. This is ongoing, and then it is going to be a binding document for the heads of state actually to work on in order to implement. They have to implement it in the future. That is one. The second is ECOWAS itself is very self-critical. Critical of itself and looking at its practices. But like I said, when you talk about ECOWAS, ECOWAS is not the commission. ECOWAS is the heads of state, then the commission, and then the other institutions. It's a holistic approach. So we need changes at the behavior of the heads of state and also the efficiency and accountability of the commission and the other institutions in order to move forward. I don't think the ECOWAS Commission had done something fundamentally wrong to trigger withdrawal of member states. But we are still looking at it because ECOWAS is built on solidarity.
Commissioner of Political Affairs, Peace and Security at the ECOWAS Commission, Ambassador Abdel Fattah Musa speaking. And in Mali, the Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General to West Africa and the Sahel is engaging officials in Bamako. Leonardo Santos Shimao was received on Thursday by Mali's Prime Minister, General Abdoulaye Maiga. The meeting focused on the security and economic situation in the country, as well as the future of cooperation between Mali and the UN. The visit comes the day after the United Nations called on countries to fight terrorism in the Sahel.
We talked about the political, economic, social, and security situation of the country, but also took the opportunity to convey a message of solidarity from the United Nations to the Malian people, especially in this context of intensified terrorist attacks, to say that the United Nations continues to support the country's efforts. We also welcomed all the efforts the country has made to bring security to the population and to ensure the supply of essential goods to the people, and even the efforts towards economic and social development, the construction of new hospitals, as well as other infrastructure for the country's economic development.
The voice of Leonardo Santos Shimao, the Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General to West Africa and the Sahel.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Remember, we stream live at wadr.org and on Facebook and YouTube at WADR English. The United States government has confirmed the abduction of an unverified number of pupils and staff from St. Mary's School in Aguara local government area of the state. In a statement signed by the Secretary of the State Government on Friday, Abubakar Usman, the government said it was still awaiting a precise head count of those abducted as security agencies continue their assessment. The State Secretary revealed that the attack occurred despite earlier intelligence pointing to an elevated threat level across parts of Niger State North Senatorial District. He said the government had, in response, issued a security directive suspending all construction activities and ordering the temporary closure of all boarding schools in the zone. Usman, however, informed that security agencies have launched full-scale investigations and search and rescue operations aimed at ensuring the safe return of the abducted pupils in the state. Meanwhile, armed men who attacked a church during service and abducted 35 worshippers in Kwara State, northwest Nigeria, have demanded 100 million naira as ransom. The much-anticipated hearing into the alleged Christian genocide in Nigeria by the U.S. Congress opened on Thursday. The special inquiry by the House of Foreign Affairs Africa Subcommittee follows the labeling of Nigeria as a country of particular concern by President Donald Trump late last month. Trump had, in a social media post, declared Nigeria as a country of particular concern, urging the state government to take immediate action to protect lives. While dozens witnessed the hearing at the Congress, thousands streamed live for testimonies which came in from different quarters. When called upon to speak, the director of the African Program Center International Studies, Oge Onabogu, said, contrary to Donald Trump's statement, the violence in Nigeria affects both Christians and Muslims. In her testimony, she advocated for enhanced security collaboration between Washington and Abuja over the rising insecurity.
Nigeria's instability stems from a key shortcoming. Currently, ethnicity, religion, and language, rather than nationality, define the identity of its diverse population. A narrow narrative that reduces Nigeria's security situation to a single story and frames it solely as the persecution of Christians oversimplifies the issue. Religious and ethnic violence is driven more by governance failures and is worsened by hate speech and conspiracy theories rather than being just a singular conflict. Nevertheless, the failure to hold the perpetrators of these violent acts accountable has created both a sense of impunity among the attackers and a sense of grievance in the affected communities. Nigerian citizens have mixed reactions to the U.S. redesignation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. Many particular Christian groups welcome the attention, seeing it as a chance to push the Nigerian government to act against the violence. However, there are also concerns among many Nigerians, including Christians, that President Trump's threats of military action could also exacerbate existing political tensions. Now, allow me to offer some concrete recommendations. It's important to engage deeply and broadly with communities across Nigeria. The U.S. can play a constructive role, but it must avoid selective intervention and address the concerns of all Nigerians across all religions to prevent worsening sectarian divisions.
Oge Onubogo, the director of the African Program Center and International Studies. More testimonies are expected from stakeholders, including senior state officials from the Nigerian government, in the coming days. Let's now turn our attention to Foya Singbe's visit to Russia. The president of Togo's National Council of Ministers held a meeting 2 days ago with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. The discussions focused on bilateral cooperation between Lomé and Moscow, as well as collaboration in the diplomatic and security fields. Francis Boniface completes the story.
The visit of the president of the Togolese Council of Ministers facilitated a rapprochement between Moscow and Lomé. Following a meeting between Foreign Yasimbe and Vladimir Putin, several decisions and commitments were made. Among them was the opening of a Russian embassy in Lomé in 2026. Vladimir Putin confirmed his strategic decision, which he said should further strengthen cooperation and allow for the establishment of an intergovernmental commission. For Lomé, this meeting is part of a strategy to diversify its international partnerships at a time when traditional Western powers are seeing their influence challenged on the continent. This bilateral meeting does offer us a new opportunity to deepen a solid relationship built on trust, sovereignty, and mutually beneficial partnership, emphasized Foreign Yasimbe. Another topic discussed was security cooperation to combat terrorism in the Sahel. Moscow aims to expand field strengthening.
A report filed in by Francis Boniface. Meanwhile, UNESCO is calling for stronger support for a new regional action plan aimed at tackling misinformation and strengthening information integrity across the sub-region. At a conference held in Dakar, Senegal, the UNESCO Regional Office presented the outcomes of its regional meeting on information integrity held in Cape Verde last September. During that regional consultation, representatives from across West Africa discussed coordinated responses to disinformation. Imoradet has more.
Across the region, ongoing political and social crises have fueled the rise of disinformation, enabling the spread of harmful content that threatens social cohesion. The prior conference sought to equip states with practical mechanisms to counter misinformation and disinformation. At the meeting in Dakar, UNESCO Regional Director Dimitri Sanga called for long-term investment and coordinated action.
And this action plan that we have, we would like to move with the same set of partners, even those who are not in prior, but who are working on these issues, to come and support the country's stakeholders, the media, the young people, the communities, the government itself, and so on, to move forward.
Canada, a key supporter of the prior meeting, also reaffirmed its commitment. Matthew Babin, Counselor for Political and Public Affairs at the Canadian Embassy in Senegal, pledged continued Canadian support for strengthening information integrity in the region.
I mentioned in my intervention earlier that we're hosting the G7 Secretariat. You can imagine in the future broader support, sharing lessons learned, because it's also about that. We're facing that challenge right now as well in Canada, and we have examples of disinformation campaigns that are taking place. But sharing that knowledge with African entities, African states, civil society, supporting civil society, we play a key role.
Disinformation continues to undermine young democracies across West Africa, and the conference produced several recommendations to help states reinforce their efforts to combat the growing threat.
Moradet reporting. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and online at wadr.org and on satellite at Eutelsat. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Electoral campaigns end in Guinea-Bissau ahead of November 23 presidential and parliamentary elections. The Niger State government in north-central Nigeria confirms abduction of school children by bandits. UN Special Envoy to West Africa and the Sahel arrives in Mali over rising security threats. Still ahead in the news, an ICC delegation meets with authorities in Conakry for justice in September 28 stadium massacre. We also have the guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Many thanks for staying with us. A delegation from the International Criminal Court ICC led by Deputy Prosecutor General Mam Manjai Nyang is currently in Guinea. Its members were received in Conakry by Prime Minister Amadou Riba. The purpose of this mission is to ensure that the appeals process in the trial of the event of September 28, 2009 stadium massacre is carried out with the same rigor as the first instance proceedings. Augustine Colley completes the story.
The judicial case related to the September 28 massacre remains a current issue in Guinea. Although the initial verdict was delivered on July 31, 2024, the country is now moving towards organizing the appeals trial. It is in this crucial phase that the visit of the ICC delegation takes place, as they have come to support Guinea until the final conclusion of the case. According to the Minister of Justice and Human Rights, this meeting with the head of the Guinean government is part of ongoing commitments already made between Guinea and the Office of the ICC Prosecutor, which provides for continuous monitoring of the progress of the trial related to the events of September 28, 2009. One of the major challenges of this mission is to ensure that the judicial momentum does not weaken during the appeal stage. Mam Manjayang thus recalled that the success of this second phase of the trial, along with the complementary aspects of the case, remains essential for the victims to finally obtain full and irreversible justice. For his part, the Prime Minister assured the ICC delegation of the Guinean authorities' full readiness to clarify this matter impartially. He also emphasized the value of this cooperation with the ICC and reaffirmed the government's commitment to mobilizing the necessary resources to ensure the continuation of the judicial process in strict compliance with international standards.
A report by WADR's Conakry correspondent Teno Alpha Ibrahima Balde and Voice Now Studios by Augustine Colley. Let's now take you to Liberia, where the National AIDS Commission Office has lamented inadequate funding challenges ahead of the 2025 World AIDS Day. Recent data from the Commission indicates that around 36,000 Liberians are living with HIV/AIDS, representing a national prevalence rate of 0.9%. This marks a decrease from 2.1% reported in the 2023 Liberia Demographic and Health Survey, signaling notable progress in the nation's fight against the epidemic. Testing coverage has improved substantially, with 1,000 individuals aware of their HIV status. WADR's Moravia correspondent Abraham Parker has more.
According to the Commission, 30,798 of these individuals are currently undergoing treatment, with a remarkable 95% achieving virus suppression. However, National AIDS Commission Chairperson Cecilia Nuta highlights a persistent gender disparity, with women being affected by the virus.
Women account for 21,000. As we celebrate these milestones, let us be reminded that sustaining the gains we've made is only possible when we take full responsibility of our health.
The Commission is actively advocating for increased financial commitment from the Liberian government to sustain and expand these games. Dr. Nuta emphasized that despite existing governmental support, current budgetary allocations remain insufficient to meet national needs and achieve comprehensive epidemic control.
Few months ago, we were taken by surprise when the U.S. government announced a temporary freeze on all foreign aid, thus resulting to the disruption of critical HIV services. While these disruptions were significant, the Commission considers this a critical call to action for increased domestic resource mobilization.
As Liberia progresses toward the 2030 target for ending AIDS as a public health threat, stakeholders are emphasizing the critical importance of enhanced collaboration, accountability, and economic resource mobilization. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Politics,
Analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, UNESCO is calling for stronger support for a new regional action plan aimed at tackling misinformation and strengthening information integrity across West Africa and the Sahel. At a press conference held in Dakar, Senegal on Thursday, the UNESCO Regional Office presented the outcomes of its regional meeting on information integrity held in Cape Verde last September. During that regional consultation, representatives from across West Africa discussed coordinated responses to disinformation. Our guest is Dimitri Sanga, UNESCO's regional director in Dakar.
This conference that took place in Praia brought together the 15 countries from West Africa and the Sahel. When you look at these countries nowadays, they are going through a number of crises: economic crisis, security crisis, climate change. These are countries where you have a growing population, mainly youth, who would like to have opportunities, to have access to education, to health. And all these problems and issues are discussed through different segments of the population. Now, when you are facing crisis, when people are not happy, when there are social, economic crises, information becomes very important. And today, with the proliferation of social media, of artificial intelligence, everybody can create content. And this leads to misinformation and disinformation. So this conference in Praia was to bring together these countries and try to find ways, framework, that will help them to deal with this issue of misinformation and disinformation. Why we wanted to bring these countries together? Because every country could do that alone. It's because in this era of social media, of AI, it transcends the border. If these 15 countries have different regulations in their countries, and of course, these creators of misinformation and disinformation will move from a country to another. There's a need for them to come together, not to harmonize their rules and regulations, but to have some common principles that will make it difficult for disinformation and misinformation producers to prosper across these countries.
How do you plan to integrate human rights throughout the execution of this action plan? Because
access to information is a human right, the same way education is a human right, access to health is a human right. So people really need to have the right to access to the information, but to the right one. Unfortunately, nowadays, with the proliferation of social media, they can access both the right information and the wrong one.
Right.
That's why this conference was very important, when everything that we have done is to say you can regulate but you have also to take into account the fact that people have the right to have access to the information.
And you also mentioned ensuring the rights of individuals, that is liberty expressions remain, just like you said. What methods do you think could be used to let that happen, to allow people to express their rights, disseminate information, but also to prevent them from sharing this information?
Almost in every country you have regulators who are dealing with these issues of information. And there are rules, very clear one, policies in each country that is dealing with this kind of things. And of course, you can have extreme cases where it can be criminalized and so on. Yes, in certain circumstances this might be the case, but you need to look at a number of principles that will bring you to say that this kind of deviation from sharing the information can be criminalized and so on. All this is part and parcel of what we are proposing there. So I think that there's a balance that we need to strike between liberty of expression and providing information that will be misleading. And this is not very easy thing to do, but there are a number of principles that we have put into these policies that can help countries to really decide and strike that balance.
Dimitri Sanga is UNESCO's regional director. In the sporting world, Africa's top club competition kicks off this weekend with the blockbuster match Day 1 holders Pyramid host Rivers United in Cairo, while Al Ahly welcome JS Kabylie and Mamelodi Sundowns face the giant killers St. Eloi Lupopo. Al Hilal meets MC Alger and Esperance opens at home at Stade Malien. The opening ground sets the tone before the tournament process for AFCON later in the year. Pyramid, fresh from a Super Cup win, headline Group A as RS Bakan, also open at home to Power Dynamos. In Group B, 12-time champions Al Ahly start strong despite injury concerns, leaning on new signings and experience in Cairo. Group C delivers coaching intrigue as Al Hilal, playing home matches in Kigali, face Rulani Mokwena's MC Alger, while Sundowns host Lupopo in Pretoria. And in Group D, 4-time champions Esperance begin against Stade Malien, with Simba facing Petro de Luanda in the other tie. And that's it for sports news. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudo Juf for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English, and stream live at WADR.org. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is a repeat broadcast of our security program in the Sahel. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Baga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.
WADR. You can listen to us on 94.9 FM in Dakar through our website www.wadr.org.
Broadcasting live. Broadcasting live. 24 hours.